4 contestants enter, but only one leaves a champion. That's right, it's time for the one and only Project Nerd Game Show. Live from the Project Nerd Studios in StreamYard, it's The Last Word.
That is some hype music if I have ever heard it. What is going on, Internet? Hello? Is this thing on? Internet, are you there? It's your boy, Q, and I am here right in my favorite place to be, hosting The Last Word. It's been a hot minute, and I am so excited to be back in, well, I was going to say in the studio, but the studio is technically my office, which I'm in like all the time. So I'm very happy to continue to be in the place that I normally am at long stretches of time. But what's different than normal when I'm usually by myself doing work at this very computer is I am joined by an amazing panel of contestants. I'm going to bring them in one by one. Let's get to them. Boom. Isaiah, what's happening, Isaiah? How are you? Oh, I can't unmute you. It says you're muted.
What's going on, everybody? There we go. So glad to be on the show. So glad to know where the mute button is.
Yes. Now
this is going to be dope.
This is good. You know what they say, the first step to winning is not being on mute. So
that's it.
You're like partially there already. Partially there.
We know where it's at. Let's go.
Next up, let's see here. We've got Tyler. What's going on, Tyler?
What is happening, my friends?
Are you ready to impress the interwebs with your...
Listen, I'm here to win. It's the only reason we play the game.
That's it. Well, that and chew bubblegum, but you're out of bubblegum.
No, just here to win.
Oh, okay.
Listen.
Bubblegum is just a
optional
secondary thing.
Sure, optional at best.
Sure. Excellent. Let's see here. Next up, we've got Leah. What's happening, Leah?
Not much. How are you? Good to be here.
Oh, so good. Are you here to win?
I am. Yes, but it's also nice to be the token female in the nerd chat.
You here representing?
So, I'm here representing.
We have quite a great female representation at Project Nerd. You are one of the amazing female minds behind the scenes.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to have you here. Speaking of amazing minds behind the scenes, let's add in our fourth and final contestant, Shaun. What's happening, Shaun?
I was told there'd be free taffy.
There is. Tyler has it.
That's why I'm here.
He will provide it to you after the show is over.
Wonderful. Can't wait. Nice to meet you guys. Glad to be here.
It's like Wonka vision. Like he's gonna teleport it through the computer to you at the end of
maybe taffy.
The unveiling of our newest technology.
It's amazing. Technology is boundless in possibilities. I mean, really. Well, I am so pumped to have all of you here. For those who are new to The Last Word, the way this is going to work is these 4 contestants on my right here or left, they are going to compete head-to-head through 3 rounds of pop culture related questions. Now, this is stuff that is happening. This is current. We at Project Nerd have our finger directly on the pulse of what is happening, and these 4 are going to debate it. Some of them may be serious questions, some of them may be even seriouser questions, and some may be just life-alteringly serious questions, because everybody knows on a game show on Project Nerd, there is no hilarity or jokes or anything. It is just dead serious topics all the time. Are you guys ready to get serious?
Woo!
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's rock and roll.
Everybody's like, I guess. The answer. This sounds terrible. Now, the way it's going to work is through each round, there will be 2 questions, except for the third round, which has one big final question. But through those rounds with 2 questions, I'm going to award points based on the answers provided by the 4 contestants here after each question. Now, we're playing Whose Line rules, so that means the points really don't matter. It's just whatever answer I like the best, they're going to get the most points. So all I'm saying is right now, Isaiah is leading the charge because he helped me behind the scenes before this episode even started. I know that that's unfair, but it doesn't matter. It's my game show. I make up the rules. So we're going to dive right in. Round 1. Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
All right, here we go.
Bring it.
Round 1. That sound, the song that plays there is like vaguely Game of Thrones.
I was
It's
literally
like,
going to say the same thing. I was like,
But
that's
it's like-
very Game of Thronesian.
Yeah.
It's just off enough so that we're not going to get sued by HBO. It's like just it's like a sound alike.
It's up to 8 seconds is fine, right? You play whatever.
And
It's cool.
it also
Exactly.
doesn't resolve, so it's fine.
It just
Our
messes
version
with
goes
me.
on.
It does not
Our
resolve
version
at all.
goes dun 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 dig it dun dun. Their version goes dun 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 dun.
Vanilla
different.
Ice reference. I love it.
Exactly.
Dun-
It's deep.
I
deep
love
cut.
it. I love it.
Like I said, we're very current here at Project Nerd. Very current. Fingers on the pulse. All right, guys. Question 1 to start the game off. We all know that the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer just dropped, revealing our first look at villains spanning the live-action film Spider-Verse. From Raimi to Webb to the new MCU, we've got characters from them all. But one thing we still seem to be missing is good old Tobey Maguire, good old Tobes, and Andrew Garfield as their respective Peter Parkers. And fans are biting their nails in anticipation. It's gross, I know, but they're doing it. But let me ask you a question. Would you rather see those two Spider Dudes pop up for nostalgia's sake? Or would you rather Marvel use this opportunity to introduce some new Spider folks into the world? Miles Morales, anyone? What do you want to see? Let's go with, I'm going to go with Isaiah. Isaiah, you're up first. What do you want to see?
Let's go. I want all of it. I want all of it. Why do I want all of it? Because it's time for Marvel to double down. Now is the time to just double down on all these things. Specifically, I've even got a fan casting for Miles Morales.
Oh.
Me.
Oh.
I was actually in the original Avengers movie. I was an extra. I've already been seated. So cast me as Miles Morales and let's go. I'll take on everybody. Let's do it.
Oh, I'm super into that. I also like the shameless plug of cast me. I'll do it. I'm 100% here for that. That's how things get done in Hollywood. You throw out interest. We can start a campaign. Isaiah for Spider-Man. I can already see the hashtag trending right now on Twitter. It's a thing. It'll happen. We'll make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Let's do it.
I love it. That was a solid answer. Nice start off to the round. Let's go with Leah next. What do you got, Leah?
I personally have been dying for Tobey Maguire to make another appearance. That original Spider-Man film was probably one of my favorite movies of my childhood. It was one of 10 DVDs we had, and I've seen it easily 100 times. So if they could bring back Tobey Maguire, he's the best Spider-Man. And given my opinions on the Halle Berry Catwoman, that probably won't surprise you, but
That's fair. For those who don't know, Leah really enjoyed the Halle Berry Catwoman film.
I did, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. So
I don't know if I should dock you points now just for mentioning that during a Spider-Man question. I do have to ask before we get somebody else's answer. Since you mentioned you had 10 DVDs growing up, and I'll bite. What were some of the other DVDs that were included in this classic 10?
oh my goodness. Road to Perdition was definitely I've seen it
Okay.
probably another 100 times. What else did we have? Legally Blonde 2 was on DVD because we had the first one on VHS. So the second
Okay.
one came out, got it on DVD. Spider-Man Transformers was another one.
So just no rhyme or reason to these DVD selections at all. Just
No. It was
the
a
real-
combination of things I could convince my mom to buy from the DVD store and things that she wanted to buy. So it was
got it.
there
I
was
love
always a
it.
middle ground.
Interesting mix. Interesting mix. I'm starting to understand the Catwoman pull now for sure. I love it. I like your answer. Let's go up next. We've got Tyler. Tyler, what do you got?
I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this. I'm definitely a Spider-Man stan. of the highest regard. Like, he is my guy. Spider-Man 2
Ooh.
is still one of the greatest movies of all time. But the more I'm like, just give it all to me, throw it all in there. Like Elijah said, just give it to me. The more I'm like, you know what? This may be the last kind of, at least for now, Marvel Sony collaboration. Like, it's kind of over after this. And I feel like they're trying to tie up a lot of knots. They're trying to close some doors. They're trying to do some things. So maybe just use this as a bookend. You're going to use it to start the multiverse for the MCU, but as a bookend for this version of Spider-Man and the other original 2 Spider-Mans. So if you want to give me some mid-credits or some teasers with some 2099, some Miles Morales, something like that, but keep the story itself. Give me some Toby, give me some Andrew, but don't get too wild with it. Also, like, I would hate for like the last of Tom Holland's like official Spider-Man outings to the MCU to just turn into a giant mess where we've got 3 Spider-Men, we've got umpteen how many villains, and I'm assuming there's probably even villains we haven't even seen in the trailer yet showing up. So, like, there's already a lot happening in this movie. We don't need more than 3 Spider-Men. 3 Spider-Men is enough.
And that's it. That is the cap on Spider-Man. On Spider-Men? Is that the plural of Spider?
Spiders man? No, it's
Spiders.
Spider-Man.
Spiders, dude.
Spider
It's
persons.
spiders, man.
Spiders.
I love it. That's it. Just spiders. Welcome to the brand new Spider-Man movie, Spiders. I love it. Solid answer. Last but definitely not least, we've got Shaun. Shaun, what are your thoughts on this new?
So I'd be more surprised at this point if we didn't see Toby and Andrew Garfield. It's really cool because all of a sudden now, instead of having these 3 separate trilogies, we've got one 9-movie long series of movies, right? And one other thing nobody else has mentioned and everybody keeps forgetting, Venom, he could be one of those other 3. Like, I mean, there's no saying that we're going to get 2 Spider-Men besides the current one. We might get a Venom and like a Toby, because spoilers, I guess we're far enough past Let There Be Carnage we can talk about it, but that after credit scene, he's gonna be in that movie. I'll be really surprised if he's not. That's not maybe how he earns his spider symbol on his chest. We're gonna have Morbius. This is a way for Sony to tie in every movie they've ever made into the Marvel universe. Every way you look at this, it's such a smart move because also Marvel's kind of entering like the point where they've kind of used most of their big popular characters. So now that they've introduced us kind of softly to the multiverse with into the Spider-Verse with the Spider-Man cartoon, and everybody loved that. Now they said, all right, well, we can go into this head first and we can really give people everything that we've ever, we've laid all this groundwork, and now we can have the Lizard, we can have the Vulture, and we can have Dr. Octopus. So I think it's super, super killer, and I can't wait to see. I am a little hesitant because we all know how Spider-Man 3 turned out. When you put too many villains in there, shit can go weird. It can get a little off the rails. But I think Marvel up to this point has really, really shown they know what they're doing. And as much as I didn't like Eternals, that showed me that Marvel can at least have a bunch of characters and make a cohesive story out of that and have something that makes sense. So I'm stoked about it.
Oh, I like this. I like these responses, folks. This is some good stuff. This is some real food for thought here. I'm trying to play with different layouts so we could not. I don't want to have people like covered up by this little logo. That's good. We'll do this when we're all wrapping here. Now, I was awarding points while I was listening to your answers. I'm gonna say right off, I liked these answers. I can tell everybody is a Spider-Man fan. Whether it's the correct Spider-Man or not, who cares? Spider-Man is Spider-Man. They're all good. They're all enjoyable in their own rights. So I'm gonna say how I kind of doled out the points here. So we'll start with Tyler. Tyler, I gave you 3 points. I gave you 3 points because I think you had a solid thought with there should be 3 spiders, if you will, as we decided. I think I agree with you. I think that there is a limit to how many spiders you should have on screen. First off, I'm arachnophobic, so 0 spiders is my preference in any given situation in life. But when it comes to spider people, then I'm cool with up to 3. I think that works best. I think things don't get muddied. So I gave you 3 points. Leah, I gave you 2 points. 2 points because I like Spider-Man 2 the best in the Raimi trilogy, and that seemed appropriate to give you 2 points since you seemed all in on Tobey Maguire. So that is completely my logic behind awarding you 2 points. Isaiah, I gave you 2 points as well. Now yours, I had a little more thought about it. I gave you 2 points because I like your enthusiasm, but I am personally very hesitant that putting too much into a movie can bloat a movie, and it can turn into a non-enjoyable experience. But I do very much support you playing Miles Morales, so I'm all about it. Like, hey, if I can help you get there, I'm gonna show Marvel that I think it's at least 2 points worthy for that idea alone. And then Shaun, I'm going to give you 3 points as well with Tyler. You said basically kind of a similar thing that Isaiah said. I did appreciate the fact that you brought up Venom, because I do think that is kind of an overlooked option when we're talking about versions of the Spider-Man. But I also appreciated the fact that you showed a little bit of restraint, because you were like, listen, I know that there is possibility that throwing too many things in this movie could make it a bad thing. So at least you have kind of that knowledge, that worry, that contemplation that is too many Spider-Mans a good thing. And so 3 points. So that gets us to question number 2. Now, speaking of nostalgia, especially looking at you, Leah, speaking of nostalgia with Tobey Maguire. Speaking of nostalgia, Ghostbusters Afterlife just dropped. I myself went opening night and must attest that it is very, very, very good. But a question I kept asking myself leading up to going was, is it necessary? Heck, after the 2016 misfire, is it even warranted? Well, I got my personal answer as a resounding yes after seeing the film, but I would like to know your thoughts. I think this one I'm gonna go to Tyler first. Tyler, what do you think? Oh, you're on mute.
-2.
Amateur hour over here. You'd think I had never done this before. This one's tricky. I think there's a lot of pieces of this. At the risk of like tanking myself out the gate, I enjoyed the movie. I definitely did not like it as much as Q did. I had a few quibbles with it, but I don't want to get into fair. Spoilers with it. But I think the answer to this is when we talk about reboots, we talk about long-awaited sequels, we talk about continuations of those sort of things. It almost always just comes down to, is it like when you say, is it warranted? I think it's warranted if you have passionate creators who have something specific to stay in that world, other than I'm just cashing this in for nostalgia's sake. Because I'm going to tell you, two of the best movies I've seen in the last couple years were Blade Runner 2049, which was like a 30-year waited like sequel. And then obviously, like we've talked about it, and if you listen to anything Project Nerd related in the last couple months, you know that I am the biggest Dune fan in the world, and a new version of Dune made after another one a long time ago was both by the same director, but amazing. But Denny had things he wanted to say there. He had passion around those projects, and like those were things he really wanted to make. And then there's 2016 Ghostbusters. Then there's a lot of things I like about the sequels, but like Force Awakens was literally just like, let's retell this story again with a bigger Death Star. And I mean, just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. Let's just tell the same story over and over again. Let's make it fan servicey as hell. Let's just cash in on that, as opposed to like, no, I want to take these pieces that live in this world and I have something important, something creative, something profound to say with them. And if that's the truth, then you know what? Keep making a single, Ghostbusters movie you want. But the minute it just becomes like, hey, remember this? Then I'm out.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's a good stance. And I don't think you tanked yourself out of the gate. I'm fine with people not liking something as much as I do. Now, if you would have come out and just been like, that movie was straight garbage, then maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But I can respect your opinion. Let's go to Leah. Leah, what do you think?
Is it one of those things that was absolutely necessary? Maybe not, but was it wanted? I think absolutely, especially after the 2016 movie was arguably kind of a disappointment. I think fans of Ghostbusters really want to see something new and something, I think the series in and of itself can be very versatile, and there's a lot of places that it can go. And I think they really, Ghostbusters fans, we really haven't had our needs met in terms of a good movie in the last, what is it, like 10 years? So yeah, I think definitely.
I think that that's fair. I think that that's a pretty did you see the 2016 Ghostbusters?
I did. It was okay. I thought there
Yeah,
were very good parts of it, and there were parts that I was like, okay, maybe. I don't know. I think there's sort of like a culty sort of vibe that the original movies had, that was sort of, this 2016 version maybe was a little bit more Hollywood, if that makes sense. So I
sure.
think it lacked that like grungy classic feeling, and I haven't seen the new movie, so I don't know where it hits on that mark, but
No, that's totally fair. Did you see the theatrical cut or the director's cut of the 2016 movie? Do you know?
I don't know. I saw whichever one was downloaded illegally on Plex. So
That's fair. I
don't
will
know.
say that as someone who, sort of enjoyed the theatrical cut, the director's cut that came out is actually not terrible. Like, it's not a good movie, but it was actually like, if you separate it from the Ghostbusters that came before, and you're just like, I'm gonna watch this as a Paul Feig comedy. I thought it was fine. It was pretty
Yeah.
fun. So
Yeah. I'm very
that is
excited for the
fair.
reboot. Anything with Paul Rudd in it is good in my book.
He is also very good. Let's go to Shaun this time. Shaun, what are your thoughts on the necessity of Ghostbusters Afterlife?
So I think the biggest reason that we need these movies is because our heroes and the people we grew up watching are getting old, man. They're starting to die. We already lost one Ghostbuster. If we don't do these sorts of movies now, we're not going to have the ability to do it in the future with the same connective tissue that it needs. So I think Star Wars went wrong because it didn't have any DNA shared with any of the original creators. It was a whole brand new set of creators. Everybody was different except for the actors. But with Ghostbusters, we have that connection with Reitman's son, right? So there's a very much a connective DNA between the old movies and this one, and people who know what they're doing and they know why the movie was popular and they have a true love for the movie. So I think as long as you have someone who knows what they're talking about, someone who has a connection to the original movie, and someone who can write something that needs to be said, like he was saying, I forget, somebody else said that, but as long as you have something to say about it that is new and fresh. And also from a dad's point of view, I love being able to take my kids and be like, this is the movie I love growing up. And now here's like a new version for you with these kids. And it still has these old bastards in it that I really grew up loving, like, Bill Murray's back in a movie. Anytime he's in anything, I'm game. So, yeah, it's great, man. And I want to see them do some other cool movies. Like, where is another Beetlejuice? Like, give me Beetlejuice 2, for God's sake, man. It's begging for another one. There's so much cool story you can tell there. Hollywood obviously doesn't want to take a bunch of chances with new ideas right now. We only see new ideas coming out of indie movies and Netflix and streaming services like that. So if they're going to continue to double down on what they know makes money, as long as they get the correct writers, because it all starts with that story.
I think that that's totally fair. I think that's a very good observation. I agree with you. I think it's important to have that connective tissue. That soul of the movie has to be there. Because like, you and Tyler have said so far, hearkening back, I think the new Star Wars trilogy is a perfect example of, maybe having a love for something, but not really understanding something, not really understanding what people want to see, and just instead coming at it from a purely like fan kind of standpoint of, let's just show them a bunch of like the greatest hits of the trilogy that they already loved, but with like new
and
characters.
it didn't have to go that way with Star Wars, right? I think after Last Jedi, we could have taken a very different, interesting direction with that. But then, J.J. Abrams comes back and is like, I'm sorry for everything that he did with that second movie. Here's some emotional stuff that I'm going to erase at the end of my movie. So I think he kind of ruined what maybe could have been a much different Star Wars when he came in and just like did Force Awakens Part 2 Deuce or whatever, man. So yeah.
Can I jump in on that? Can I jump in
Yeah.
on that? I know this is not
you know
a
what?
Star
I'm just
Wars
gonna
section.
Make it your turn. Isaiah, here we go.
I have to defend real quick Star Wars. I have to defend Star Wars.
Okay,
because
get in there.
I love Star Wars. I think the last Jedi took us in the wrong direction. And the reason that I say that and why JJ needed to come back was because was it Ryan Johnson? He did not understand what JJ was doing. Yes, it was kind of
JJ didn't understand what JJ was doing.
But hear me out on this. Hear me out on this. When you have Luke Skywalker, who was, let's be honest, he was a crybaby in the original trilogy, right? That's fine. But he progressed and he grew, right? He grew by the time we finished with him. Ryan Johnson reverted him by him throwing the lightsaber into the ocean. That was like, hey, guess what, fans? I'm going to spit in your face. So J.J. Abrams, as a director, he has to now come back and go, oh, I've betrayed my audience. And me as a filmmaker and as a video editor, the one thing you cannot do is betray your audience. That leads me into Ghostbusters. Why this Ghostbusters movie is absolutely necessary. The 2016 movie, to me, did exactly what Ryan Johnson's movie did. To me, that movie spat in the face of the original Ghostbuster movies, 1 through 3. It was literally a soulless movie for me. And really the reason that Ghostbusters really works for me is Bill Murray. He is the heart, he is the soul of it. But what makes this movie so awesome is the perspective of a child going through this. And I think I always say his name wrong. Ego, his relatives, showing it from this point of view, one includes more people like they wanted to do in the 2016 movie, but they did it genuinely. And that's the big thing. And that's what my problem with that second Star Wars movie was.
I think in a way, though, that's kind of what he was doing, right? Because at the end of that movie, it's showing like, hey, you don't have to be Skywalker. You don't have to be special. Anybody can pick up this ring and have it inside them to be like part of the Force. So, it's okay that, like, I don't know. I just, that whole trilogy, it's so weird, that trilogy, because I loved it in the theaters. And then I walked out and I thought about it and I was like, man, it's all kind of a mess. You have 3 different people writing 3 different movies, going 3 different directions, or 2 different people anyway. And it just didn't work for me, man. Especially some of the just total circumstantial stuff that has to happen in the third one in particular. Rey has to land in this special spot with a special dagger and put in this special spot to see the special thing. Like, I just was like, oh my God. So there were parts of it that I did and didn't like. But, in the theater with my kids, we all loved it. I walked out of there crying. But also I cried because I thought fucking Chewie was going to die. And he doesn't. We take so many things back. Like, we think C-3PO is going to lose his mind. And he doesn't. We take it back. So, like, the movie was an apology for an apology making apologies. So, anyway, on to the next.
Yeah. And that's, again, what I'm saying, going back to Ghostbusters, is that this movie had to course correct. It really had to course correct. I haven't seen the movie yet. If Bill Murray's not in this movie, which I'm assuming he is just by the trailer, even if he isn't, they're going after the heart and soul of a generation again. Similar to when I first saw the original Ghostbusters, I was a kid going, I'm terrified of Slimer, but I want to see what happens anyway. I think they're going back. It's so easy to just simply say, hey, this is Ghostbusters. We have the car, we have, the photon packs, we have all that stuff. So that makes it Ghostbusters. What makes Ghostbusters is what I'm at least seeing in the trailer. It's about family, and it's not family like Fast and Furious family, but it's about family. Even though he and The Rock can't get along. Anyway, it really is about family and how you traverse these things. Now, Paul Rudd, I got to address Paul Rudd in this movie. Paul Rudd is in it he again can be the Bill Murray of this, right? Really, you could almost say he's the Bill Murray of this generation, right? Every time I see Paul Rudd, I'm like, that guy. I love that guy. I love you, man. So for me, absolutely necessary. It had to come out now. If they would have waited too long, I think they could have lost this franchise.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the thought behind all of this. I liked everybody's answers. I think they're solid answers. This is a tough one to score because you all had solid points. All right, man. Okay, so I just got to do it. I just got to pull the trigger here. So I think. All right, I'm going to award the points as thus. I'm going to start with Tyler. Tyler, I'm going to give you 4 points. I know that seems surprising considering that you thought you were tanking your answer at first with a less than favorable review or a favorable review, but maybe not as emphatic as my review of Ghostbusters.
It's good, not great.
I think you had some solid points, and I can appreciate that. I think viewing it, I may have definitely been blinded by my nostalgia to a certain extent, and I just accept that. Like, it's fine. It's fine. The fact that I went in hoping to see a bunch of things, and most of them I saw. So I'm pretty jazzed about that. So I'm going to give you 4 points. Shaun, I'm going to give you 3 points because I agree with you. I think it's important to kind of maintain the souls of these movies, and I think there are situations where you can do fan service just for the sake of fan service, or you can it's about finding that healthy balance between fan service and saying something, doing something new, you know what I mean, progressing that story. And I agree with you somewhat on the Star Wars trilogy. I was not a fan of the Rian Johnson film, but I also was not a fan of how the new trilogy ended. I did not think that JJ set up the trilogy for success. I think Ryan tried to do something interesting. Whether or not it was successful, that's a whole different episode of a whole different show. But the way that it was capped off, I think, was way too fan servicey. And the unfortunate part is, as a fan, it didn't even hit any of the sweet spots that I was hoping for. So the Force Awakens, I was totally on board with. The second one, the last Jedi, right? Was okay. I thought it had some interesting thought components, but the Rise of Skywalker was, I thought, a total mess. And now that I've read the script for the Colin Trevorrow movie that was supposed to happen, now I am 100% assured that would have been a much better way to end the trilogy. That's just my opinion. And I know that's a lot of Star Wars talk, but it brings me to Isaiah. So I gave you 3 points because, again, flip side of the coin, I appreciate your fervor for the Star Wars fandom. I totally get what you're saying. I get that opinion, and I agree with you as well that it's important to, if you're going to do something, you have to kind of make that effort to do it right. And so whether or not I agree with you that the trilogy ended well or that it was done well by Abrams, that's beside the point. The fact is that when you have people that are caring about something and that are really making an effort to do something different or to provide fans what they're looking for, I think it goes a long way. So I'm going to give you 3 points. And Leah, I'm going to give you 2 points, mainly because I liked your answer, but these other guys, man, they were going for it. You know what I mean? Suddenly we're talking Star Wars. Suddenly we're talking just fandoms across the board and whether or not they apply. And so I just thought that they brought a little bit more with their answers. So that said, rounding out round 1, we've got Isaiah at 5 points. We've got Shaun at 6 points. We've got Tyler at 7 points. And unfortunately, Leah, that leaves you at 4 points. And you are our first person ejected from the game, but you are fantastic. Please stick around. We'd love to see you at the end. Everyone say bye to Leah. Thank you so much for participating. We will see you soon. All right. Boom. And with our first loss of the game, that means it is officially time for round 2. Bum, ba-da-bum, bum, bum. Bump, ba-da-bum, bum, bum. I love the little weird Game of Thrones music. At first, I thought we were gonna have like air horns or something in the round changes, but I really like. I feel like it really like propagates that like we're going to battle feeling. So in round 2, the stakes are raised not only in this game, but in the tone of the questions that we're asking. Not normally, but it just seemed to be the way that it worked out for this episode. So, question 1 of round 2, let's dive right in. Let's start round 2 off with a more serious note. Travis Scott is currently sitting at around $2 billion worth of lawsuits levied against him for the tragedy that took place at his Astro World Festival a few weeks ago. Real talk. In these situations, do you feel like the artists themselves should be held liable? And if so, then why should it stop at money? Should jail time be on the table? Let's go to Shaun. Start us off. What do you think, Shaun?
This thing's weird, man, because I think what's going against Travis the most is that in the past he's kind of glorified violence at his shows and been like, hey, look at this guy over here. He passed out and like he's awesome because he almost died. So it's almost like he perpetuated this stuff. And it's hard to say if he had any idea what was going on in that crowd, because I know how it can be when you're up on stage looking down, you got lights in your eyes. But who I know is responsible is Live Nation. They should just not be a company anymore. Like from the beginning of that show to the end, there was a failure at every point. Security was not trained correctly. They did not have enough security to begin with. The way they had the barriers set up was just asking for trouble. And I'm not a big fan of Travis Scott. I don't really like rich people. So, give all the poor people the money, because some people died. Really young people who just went there to see some dude that they saw on Fortnite and were like, hey, this guy sings cool music in a video game that I love. And we have kids dying because people can't control themselves, and we don't have anything in place to make sure that these people don't kill each other. I mean, it's so wild. And I had to have a hard time believing personally that Travis didn't know something was going on down there, because you can see that whole crowd is like a solid mass of bodies. And you can, and the chick who went up on that security tower, like, I know they were yelling at her to get down and stuff, but I'm like pushing those dudes off. I'm pulling cords out. I'm like, there are people dying. Like, you guys need to do something about this. And the fact that the concert continued for another hour, like, whose fault was that? Was that Live Nation? Yeah. Was that the police? What, like, how do you fail at every single level to keep these people safe who come to you and expect at the very least that they're not going to die when they come see their favorite artist sing some songs? So yeah, man, the thing is just sad, crazy sad. And it's hard to watch. It's one of those things where like it makes your heart jump in your chest. It's just so crazy.
For sure. I totally agree. So just for clarification's sake, I feel like your answer leans more towards the promoter and the people throwing the concert necessarily than the artist, although you're not absolving the artist of responsibility during the show.
I'm not, it very well, I think he very well should be named in this lawsuit. Absolutely. He needs to prove that he didn't know what was going on. I think that's the burden of this proof is up to him to go in there and say, look, guys, I had no idea. But ultimately, Live Nation should have been on his mics, his headsets. They're the people who are responsible for telling these artists what is occurring and like what they need to do. And for whatever reason, nobody decided to get on the mic and say, hey, Travis, you need to like stop right now. Nobody decided to go out on that stage and say, you need to stop right now. So I think first Live Nation, and then Travis needs to prove that he's not to blame also.
Yeah, I like that. I totally agree. I like that answer a lot. Isaiah, what do you think?
Yeah, again, as an artist, I'm going to come from an artist perspective too. Having in-ear speakers sometimes is extremely hard to hear anything, especially when there's thousands and thousands of people. That being said, lives were lost. Knowing, I love what you said, knowing that Travis has put this out there. I'm angry that children were at this show And that's not to put blame on the children at all. It just saddens me because they were in harm's way, and that
if anything,
really
he established himself as like there for a kids artist too, because he's in Fortnite. That is the biggest kids game in the world, and that is him very much saying your kids are safe being my fans.
And that is an issue. That is an issue, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is how he's been portrayed as family friendly when those things are going on. My understanding is that he also has investment in the ground, so it was at his place, as well as ultimately the buck falls with him in security. And when you do things like that, you bring out Drake. This is not the first time he's brought out Drake, right? Drake is one of the biggest stars of all time. You know that that's going to be an emotional high, and you can see he stopped for a moment to say, hey, look, this guy is hurt. But I believe that crowd knew, oh yeah, he does this all the time. So I think definitely financially, he needs to be responsible. Jail time, that's really tough, because if I'm trying to put myself in the artist's shoes. If I'm at a show, I do rap, right? I do Christian hip hop. If I'm doing that and two people fight at my show and I go, hey, stop, but someone gets their tooth knocked out, am I not only liable for that dental work, but let's say he swallows the tooth and dies? That's really hard. And I would consult a lawyer at that point in time. Ultimately, I'm just, when I saw and heard this, and I heard people lost their lives, and that as people were trying to get medical attention, people were jumping all over the ambulance and stuff like that. That's what it literally just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, especially in a season now where we're allowed to really come back. Let's not forget, this time last year, everybody was locked away in their houses, right? And I have a passion for live music, but when people are losing their lives at live shows, it just grieves me. It really, really does. So I think there has to be a message sent specifically to Travis. I feel like, keeping it game based, the emotes wasn't enough of a pull for me. I think you got to pull him from all the games, because he's not a child friendly artist. That's kind of my take.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So just again, for clarification's sake, so you're saying that there is a debt of responsibility on behalf of the artist to an extent. To what extent, we're not maybe talking jail time, but we're talking definitely some sort of like financial restitution of some sort. And then on top of that, he definitely needs to think about how his public persona is portrayed. Anything having to do with video games or any tie-ins, things like that promote directly to kids, definitely should be something that is pulled, because those folks don't need to be at his shows,
which sucks, because his McDonald's meal was friggin' delicious, man. That Travis Scott meal was something else.
Not only that, his shoes are awesome. He's an icon in that way, right? But just like we have a rating system for movies, right? If I took my kids to Clifford the other day, cool, fine. But let's say Clifford is running down the street and Scorpion jumps out and throws a spear into a big red dog. I'm gonna go, that's not what the ratings say. You know what I'm saying? Right. So absolutely, I definitely think he's financially responsible. We have to look at how these things are marketed. Again, Fortnite, everybody at one point in time or another has heard of Fortnite or knows how this works. I get financially for Fortnite. Yes, this is great. We have Travis Scott, one of the biggest names ever, or at least right now. But you have to think about the long term, and you have to think about people's lives.
For sure. That's totally fair. Tyler, what do you have to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing here is just to be clear that like this isn't like any other event, and like trying to use it as a gauge for other ones. Specifically this one, there's just, I mean, we could go on all night, like, and like there's a reason this story keeps going. There's a lot to unpack here, but here's the biggest things that stand out to me. Number one, Isaiah made a point about like, hey, you know, if you've got in your monitors, you can't always hear what's going on, things like that. This crush began, you know, at a certain time. It declared emergency. 300 people plus were treated for injuries on site, and ambulances are in the crowd of the festival. And the show goes on for another 30, 45 minutes. There's not hearing someone in your monitors being like, hey, there's a thing happening. And then there's being on stage and seeing literal ambulances in the crowd and being like, let's rage. Let's just keep going.
For sure.
So that's on him there for certain. Also, there's ample, there's a incredible body of backstory and evidence of like, he encourages this behavior at his concerts. Like there is video after video, concert after concert of him basically egging the concert. I mean, and I don't want to like get into legal jargon or like, or I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to make comments, but like you said, like, should there be jail time? I don't think under normal circumstances, if someone gets hurt at your concert, you should be legally liable necessarily. Now, granted, it's his concert. Like he owns it, runs it. It's different than him just being someone who shows up at a gig to do a thing. But at the same time, there are definitely laws against what we would say inciting a riot, which if you listen to some of the videos and some of the stuff like that, it's pretty, I mean,
those cases haven't gone so hot lately.
I would not want to, I wouldn't want to go in front of a jury with the body of evidence that Travis Scott has on his rap sheet for something like inciting a riot. So,
but let me throw this at you. I hate to interrupt you, but let's look at like Family Values tour, right? Where there's these huge crowds of people doing mosh pits. Right.
These huge concerts that have occurred.
Right. It is kind of the same thing though, isn't it?
See, but the difference here is you have them corralled into a metal pen. Whereas all these other ones, they're basically more wide open spaces, right? Where people could spread out, they could do their acid off in the corner, and it's not a big deal. But it like literally everything about this festival from the top down was a fail. The way they designed that entire area was a complete failure. Like, and you know, also we have to consider that there were so many more people in that show than should have been because they failed at the security gate to even check tickets. So people were just crowding that security gate, running in. What, the merchandise booth closed at noon because it couldn't even make it past that because it was just getting like destroyed and stolen from. And so
yeah, and earlier in the day they had already had security ban. They'd already had like a huge rush where security barricades were knocked down. People got into, I mean, like this was a failure from top to bottom, which is obviously it had to have been. People literally died from it. But the bigger question is like obviously should artists? The question is specifically should artists be held responsible for these things that happen in a concert? And I think there's levels to that. I think there are times when yes, but when you're number one, the person who like it's your like he is the organizer, the owner of it, like runs it, and has this huge like backlog of like basically being on stage telling people, you know, rush the stage, don't pay attention to security, do what you want. Changes things. I think it changes things. You get into legal things, I think there's a possibility in a situation like this where it's so like maybe he is, but I wouldn't go so far as to make a blanket statement that anytime something like this happens, like it's I don't want to, I mean, it's hard to paint every possible like concert issue that could happen going forward with the same brush because this was obviously not normal. But in this case, I think there's if I would not be surprised, nor would I have any strong arguments against if criminal charges were brought.
It's weird how it's almost real similar to the Baldwin thing, right? Like you have this celebrity who's maybe responsible for deaths, and we're trying to figure out who's actually responsible. You know, it's like it's not exactly the same, but they're very similar because in both circumstances we have someone who was essentially handed a loaded gun, and now we're trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I like this answer. I like these answers a lot. I think that they're very well thought out. I'm going to go ahead and award points. So Tyler, I'm going to give you 4 points for this answer. I think it's very well thought out. I do like that you actually engaged on the on the piece about the jail time, because I do think that that's an interesting like delineation of like at what point do we stop just suing for money and saying we hold somebody responsible, and if they pay us enough then that absolves them, and do we say, hey man, like money is not going to bring my kid back to life, I need somebody to be responsible for this, you know what I mean? And so I think that there's an interesting question there at play. But I also appreciate the fact that, you know, this isn't every concert situation. You know what I mean? This is a very specific kind of perfect storm of failures. So it is kind of hard to make that blanket statement that all artists should be responsible or not. So I appreciated that. So 4 points. Shaun, I gave you 4 points as well. I think you had a very similar approach, but I appreciated the fact that, you know, outside of the artists themselves, you really dug into the fact that, you know, Live Nation in this particular instance, you know, this is a problem. Like they are a huge failure on this. Travis Scott, while owning this festival and organizing this festival, doesn't have the, you know, decades of experience that these concert organizers have that he hired to partner with for this. And I think that's a problem. You know what I mean? 100%. I agree with you that companies should just not be a company anymore. If you have a catastrophic failure on this level, then, you know, what do you do? You know what I mean? What do you do? So 4 points. I agree with that. Isaiah, I gave you 3 points. I totally understand where you're coming from and I get it, but I feel like your response, and maybe it was from, you know, kind of the artist perspective, which I get and I appreciate, but I felt like it was a little bit more on the fence than kind of delineating definitive like blame or opinion, which I can respect and appreciate, but I couldn't award a full point array for it, if that makes sense. So that brings us at the end of the first question, round 2, we've got Tyler with 11 points. We've got Shaun with 10 points, and we've got Isaiah with 8 points. Now, this is still anybody's game because we are rolling into question 2 of round 2. Here we go. Let's move away from being locked up and talk about the recently freed Britney Spears. After 13 long years, her conservatorship has officially come to an end, and B will be left to her own devices. Now, as fans, we like to think that we know the inner workings of celebrities' lives, and oftentimes are shocked to find out that they aren't exactly like what we pictured in our head or what was portrayed through media. And a lot of people have rushed to Britney's aid, and campaigns and protests have been said to have helped in ending her conservatorship in this case. My question is, at what point should a line be drawn between fan interaction and involvement in a celebrity's actual life? Let's start with Isaiah on this one. Isaiah, what are your thoughts on this particular situation?
I think the line has to be drawn at what the artist is saying. We're not listening to these artists at all, right? And Britney's a perfect example of this. But I want to tie this kind of back into maybe the first question. I think of Tobey Maguire, and we've probably all seen it. When Tobey Maguire was driving his car and paparazzi were surrounding him, and he's like, "Get out of the way! Move, or I'm going to run you over," right? That is the line right there. The artists, the actors, the celebrities, they're telling us when they want the paparazzi, guess what? They're on the red carpet. They're doing interviews. They're on whatever shows. When it comes to fans and stuff like that, they're taking pictures with the fans when they feel comfortable. But what we're not doing is we're not listening to the artists. We're treating them as if they're a product. We're not treating them as human beings. So with Britney, when Britney's saying, "Look, my life, this has ruined my life. we've seen her go to all of these what seems strange lengths, right? She shaved her head, all of these things, because she's trying to get attention. Amanda Bynes, the same thing. No one was listening. And when we don't listen to people as people, I think that's when unfortunately bad things happen. So it's really important that if Brittney is saying, hey, this is the way I'm feeling, this is what's going on with my dad, I need to be free from this. You have to take an honest look at it and listen.
Sure. I think that's a fair statement and fair thought. Tyler, what are your thoughts on the situation?
Line should be drawn wherever the celebrity wants to draw it. And I think that's the only person that should have any say in it is them. Like, they don't owe you or me or us anything. They don't owe anyone anything other than, like, they can do what they want. And some of them choose to let you in and some of them choose not to, and that's their decision. So, like, anyone who wants to make, like, oh, they owe us this or with this, and like this, in this case, like, she let people in and it was for a greater benefit, but she didn't have to. And if she didn't want to, no one has the right to, like, get in and pry and things like that. Now you start getting into, and Isaiah touched on a little bit, like, where we get into weird, like, substance abuse, mental health issues, where it's like, you know, someone maybe needs to step in, maybe they can't make those decisions, but at the same time, we see in the Britney case, those sorts of situations can be abused. But when it's all said and done, if the question is, where do we draw the line between how much access or where the line gets drawn between the public and the celebrity, that's 100% on the celebrity to draw that line wherever they feel comfortable with it. It's up to everyone else to respect it.
I dig that, man. I think you and Isaiah are on the same page on that. I like that a lot. Shaun, what do you think?
You know, so Isaiah had mentioned the clip of Toby getting harassed by the paparazzi. And what's funny about that, so that was a clip from the Viper Room back in those days, early 90s when that existed. And that's kind of the birth of paparazzi right there. When that Viper Room existed, Johnny Depp was down there with all those famous people. Before that, you didn't really have people out taking pictures and, like, chasing these people down. But all of a sudden, then that kind of gave, like, this location where the most famous people in the world were going to hang out. And, you know, you could go down and hang out down there. And part of what made the Viper Room so cool for celebrities is they knew that they could go there and not be, like, you know, harassed by the general public and stuff like that. My personal opinion, I would never, ever screw with any sort of celebrity in any situation if I saw it in public. And you know, Isaiah was also saying, like, we're not listening. Oh, I'll listen to Brittney. What can I do about it, though? Like, you know, they're not talking to the right people. They're not trying to get the help from the correct people. Brittney in particular, I think she's at least doing it correct and going for, like, the legal stuff and all that. As far as, like, the fans and celebrities connecting, what I think is really cool that Comic Cons and, like, conventions all over have brought us now is a way for, like, the general public to kind of connect with the people that we love in a mutual way where we're giving them money and they love being there. They want to sign the stuff. They want to talk to us. So, you know, my whole opinion on the thing is just kind of let celebrities be, let them do their thing. I can't help any of them. So, you know, I'll give you a like and a comment, Brittney, but, you know, keep on keeping on.
I think that's fair. I think, honestly, this is going to be the easiest round that I've scored so far, mainly because I think you all kind of said generally the same thing, that the line should be drawn kind of where the celebrity chooses to draw it. You know, we should listen. You know, I think, Isaiah, you were saying it by we should listen to the celebrity more often. You know, if they are saying they do or don't want something, then we should respect that as fans. Tyler, you were essentially saying the same thing, that essentially, you know, the celebrity should have the freedom to say, I want to let you in this much to my life, or I want to keep you out of my life completely. Either way they decide, that should be the end of the line for the fans. And I think, Shaun, you essentially echoed the same thing, that essentially, you know, if you see a celebrity out on the street, you're not going to, like, go harass them and be like, hey, give me an autograph right now because I've paid $20 to see your movie in the theater and you owe me.
I bought your action finger.
Exactly. It should be up to the celebrity to have that interaction. And if they choose to go to comic conventions and have that direct interaction with their fans, then that's them. I will say one thing that I don't enjoy as somebody who goes to comic conventions a lot is invariably you'll always have that one celebrity that is at that comic convention that seems like they want nothing to do with anyone that's there. And my mind is always completely blown because I'm like, you don't have to be here. Like,
There you go.
Lando
Absolutely.
Calrissian. When I met, I forget what his actor's name is. I'm completely
Billy
blank
D.
right now.
Williams.
Billy D.
Oh man, he could have cared less that I was a human being on the planet Earth. He was like, yeah, okay. And
Yeah,
like, I
okay,
get
get
it.
outta
He's
here.
probably heard the same story 50 zillion times from 60 zillion other hippies who look just like me and have Star Wars tattoos and love Boba Fett and all that shit. So I try to also understand that these are aging human beings who probably
Sure.
don't always have the best days. I was pleasantly delighted that William Shatner was exactly as much as an asshole as I thought he would be. So that one was like perfect. I was like, I would not expect any less than to have a piece of glass between us with you sitting there like you're dying. So yeah, it was great.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to give you guys all 4s across the board because I think these were all solid answers. And like I said, I think you're all kind of saying the same thing. So that means at the end of round 2, I'm going to tally it up. That means Tyler, you have 15. Shaun, you have 14. Isaiah, you have 12. That means you're going to be leaving us in the second round. Oh man, I appreciate
There's
you.
the
Please
door.
stick around. We'd like to see you here in a few minutes. Everybody say goodbye to Isaiah. Bye,
Bye,
Isaiah.
Zaya. You can say bye, Zaya, and it works.
Well, gentlemen, you have made it. You have reached the mountaintop. Now, which one of you will summit the peak the fastest? We'll find out. Because it is time for the final round. I also feel like the Game of Thrones music is getting shorter each round. Like, I feel like the first one, it was kind of like dun, 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 like it was longer. And this one was just like dun, 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 end. But speaking of the end, it is time for you two to go head to head against the final question of the night, ultimately trying to usurp the other for the right to the proverbial last word. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Yeah.
Excellent. This is it. The final question. For this one, we're going to go rolling in the deep about a particularly embarrassing moment for a media outlet as Sony Records puts the kibosh on an interview with Adele after a journalist admits to not listening to her new album prior to the interview. True story, happened in Australia. Terrible situation. Now, I will ask, this question has nothing to do with that. Rather, I would prefer that you guys tell me and the rest of the interwebs about a time that you were ill prepared for something major, preferably, in your life, and you missed out on an opportunity because of it. This is your moment for redemption. I say, let's go with Shaun. Shaun.
Oh man. So I guess the one for me, I own a couple dispensaries in Colorado. And back when I first started the medical dispensary, I had a production company. They came and they were like, hey, we want to make this reality show. We want you to be a part of it. We've got you and a couple other dispensary owners from the area. You want to come be a part? And at the time, I'm like 24, maybe 25. And I'm like, oh, yeah, man, it's great. I'll be awesome on TV. Everything fun. And I'm going to kick this thing's ass. And man, like about the 7th or 8th time that I had to redo my hero entry, which is where I like walk up into the frame, and do my little pose for like the the beginning of the show. I just knew that like it probably wasn't my time quite yet. They took me into a glass making factory where they were all blowing these like beautiful bongs and pipes. And at this point in my life, I had never dabbed. And if you don't know what a dab is a concentrated form of cannabis that's used. And so on camera, these guys who own this shop are like, hey man, you want to try a dab? And me trying to be cool guy for camera, I'm like, absolutely, man, let's do it. So the jerks that they are, knowing I had never done this before and was on camera, they overdo it. Give me like a half gram, which is, if you know what you're talking about, you know what I'm saying, that's a lot. And so I spent about the next 15 minutes on camera coughing, throwing up. I can barely breathe. Like I can't even speak. And here I am trying to give like the industry I'm part of this really good, image, and I'm trying to be like really intelligent. And the next thing I know, I'm writhing on the ground, like near death. So needless to say, I did not get a call back afterwards.
No. Oh man, that sucks.
It was fun.
That super sucks.
The cap on that, this year Discovery Plus came into my dispensary, my recreational dispensary here, and they did a show called High Times. So I actually did get my retribution.
Nice. So you got that redemption
revenge.
moment.
So you sell. What's that?
I said, so you got that redemption moment.
I got the redemption, man. I totally did. They came back, and I got to do puppets on TV because I'm a big nerd and I do puppets and stuff. So, I got the redemption. I got to be on TV. That'll be on like sometime this coming year. So, everybody keep an eye open.
You just said some magic words to me. I am also a big nerd, and I happen to love puppets and have done puppets myself. So we should talk about that at some other time.
I just got done doing a puppet dating show. I lost. My puppet lost anyway, Mad Monster. But it was a blast. I got to go on there and Zoom call with another chick puppet who wanted my puppet wiener. It was great.
I love it. This sounds amazing. I want to watch this immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Tyler, how can you follow up puppet wieners?
Yeah, I don't think I can top that. And I know how much Q loves him some puppeteering. So mine is less exciting, and like everything went smoothly, but when it's all said and done, it wasn't great. It's the very beginning of COVID shutdown where everything went, everyone's locked in their homes, everything went. I had just recently applied for a new role at a job that I had at the company that I was working for at the time. And it was a really cool opportunity, but like everything, like I was in the process of going through all these votes, and then like the world shut down. So everything got weird and everything moved to, WebEx and FaceTime and all sorts of interviews. And one thing that I think all of us have learned as the pandemic stretched on, especially people who did a lot of work from home work, is that when it comes to work from home, especially when you work for companies that may or may not be located in different time zones are important. And a lot of people who this was their first time having to do these sorts of things didn't handle those well. And I definitely got sent a calendar invite for an interview, and it wasn't the interviewer's fault and it wasn't my fault, but it was the person, or like the recruiter who was organizing the interview, had basically sent two, rather than send one invite, sent two invites out, both in the local time of the person who was sending them. So I got one in my local time and the interviewer got one in their local time at the same time locally, but definitely offset by an hour otherwise. And I may have gotten a FaceTime call for a very important interview while, what's the best word for it? I was sitting on the toilet.
Pooping.
Yeah, I was not in a good place. I mean, it's all said and done. I recovered strongly, but and I feel like I did okay in the interview, but it was one of those things where, I didn't answer the voice temp call, like sitting on the pot, like doing my business. But at the same time, I had to be like, just a moment. I'm not in the other room. Let me made up some excuses, but then I was off my game the whole conversation. And I don't know that that's the only reason that I didn't get that job, but I definitely didn't get that job. So
I'm very proficient in Excel.
Listen, I can do a pivot table like no one else.
I love it. I love both of these answers. Man. All right, cool. Well, here we go. We're going to award the final points. Tyler, I'm going to have you finish this game out with 30 points for this final question. That was embarrassing. And I appreciated you sacrificing your dignity with that story. So that brings you to 45 points at the end of the game. Shaun, I'm going to award you 5 billion points. That brings you to 5,014 points at the end of the game.
Woo!
That makes you tonight's winner. We appreciate your humility, Tyler, but it's time that we say goodbye to you. Goodbye, Tyler.
Byler. It works too. By Isaiah, Byler. It's one of those nights.
Oh, man. Shaun, this is it. You were
long time coming, man. I could taste it. The other time
you were last so close at the beginning of the show, and you are last out as tonight's last word winner. in just a few seconds, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to promote, do, or say whatever you want to for 60 uninterrupted seconds. All right. So in just a few seconds, we're going to do that. Are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right, here we go. This is your time for the last word right after this video.
What's up, everyone? Shaun Hadley with Hop Toys. That's High on Plastic Toys. You can check us out at highonplastictoys.com. We make a whole bunch of awesome stuff. This is our best-selling item, the Mothman plushie. He's great. We sell a ton of those. Please go check us out, highonplastictoys.com. We're just a small little startup company. We're getting going. We've only been around for 3 years. Even a little tiny $10 purchase really helps us out. So check it out. Let us know what you think. If you want to see some other cool, different toys, we got Guar toys on the way. I should have mentioned that. We got some toys on the way that we did with the original designer of the My Pet Monster plush. So really awesome, big things coming from Hop Toys. Check us out, guys. Thanks for having me on the show also. I'm going to try and be humble, but, I'm pretty stoked I won. So
I can appreciate that so much. That was well done, sir. Congratulations being tonight's last word champion. You had me at My Pet Monster. I was a big My Pet Monster fan.
Dude, you go check it out on our website. We have a guy coming out named Mad Monster. He's a big vinyl figure that James Groman, who was one of the original designers for My Pet Monster, he sculpted this for us. And it's basically if My Pet Monster got forgotten in the attic for, the past 20 years, he got angry and pissed off. He had to steal a Care Bear's hand to replace his. They got taken by a rat. And it's this really mean, big figure that's all hand painted. So I'm really proud of that one coming.
I'm super into it. Well, congratulations to you. Everybody go check it out. In the meantime, let's bring back the rest of our contestants. We've got Tyler, Isaiah, and Leah. Now, real quick, we'll start with Tyler. Tyler, where can people find more about you if they so choose?
Just, Project Nerd and all of Project Nerd's popularity. I mean, just project-nerd.com. We have it all. Like, if you're watching this, I feel like you know this. We've got podcasts, we've got video productions, we've got convention coverage, interviews, film reviews, you name it, we've got it. Come check us out. See some of the cool stuff we did. There's a lot of cool content that Q and I were a part of just recently from a convention out in Colorado. A lot of cool, really information stuff there, and always more and more cool stuff coming down the line. So just
love it.
Keep it tuned to Project Nerd.
Excellent. Isaiah, what do you got?
Yeah, definitely check us out at linktr.ee/select screen. We're a family-friendly channel. We play games, do movie reviews and reactions. Shout out to my sister, who is also my teammate on the channel, Elmo172331. You can find out all of our stuff. Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Cash App too if you want.
Sweet. And Leah, last but not least, where can people find out more about you?
Like Tyler, you can find me on Project Nerd or at some of our events. But also maybe please don't Google me because a lot of the pictures that come up are not flattering. So do everybody a favor.
Cue the entire internet Googling you right now.
Happening right now.
That's so excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for being on tonight's episode. I'm going to take us home here. Thank you, the audience, for joining us. This show exists because people like you watch it. And if you want to see more things like this, like Leah and Tyler mentioned, please go to project-nerd.com where you can keep up to date on all of the awesome videos that we're making to put into your eyeballs. You can also check us out at YouTube. Go to Project Nerd on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification icon so that way you get updated every time a new and amazing episode like this goes live. And if you like audio things and you're tired of visuals, then you can check out our podcast network. We've got 13 plus podcasts of all sorts of varieties to tickle your interest. So go check it out. Our main feed is the Project Nerd 1 feed, where we've got 3 or 4 of our hit podcasts playing for you there. So go check it out. Until next time, I've been Q. These contestants have been great, and you've been our audience. We'll see you later.